we are on the Acropolis in the form that it was created in the Golden Age of Athens in the 5th century BCE. Indeed, we associate this Golden Age with one person, one name, and that is Pericles, the ruler over Athens from 461 BCE to 429 BCE. And it was Pericles who saw and commissioned the grandeur of Athens, the hegemonic power of the region of his day, with these grand structures, the Parthenon, the perfect Doric temple, the Erechtheion, which is here with this magnificent Ionic temple, and behind me the Propylaea, the entrance to Acropolis. It was Pericles who envisioned this as the demonstration of the glory, the power, the wonder, the beauty of his Athens. Well, the story of getting to Pericles is itself one of the most important stories of Western history, because this was the age of intense contestation between Asia and the West. And it took its form most vividly in the Persian Wars between the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states that was described in the first great Western history, the Histories by Herodotus. And it is those events that led to the Periclean age of Athens. We can start with the rise of the great power of Persia in the 6th century BCE, and the Persian Empire expanded to today's Anatolia in Turkey, including the Greek colonies and city-states on the Mediterranean coast of Anatolia, the Ionian city-states. And our story of the age of Pericles really begins with a revolt of the Ionian states in the 490s BCE against Persian domination. And that revolt was first put down by the Persians, and then they decided that since the Greek city-states, Sparta and Athens and others, had supported this revolt, it was time for the mighty Achaemenid Empire to move against the Greek city-states themselves in Attica, where Athens is, in the mainland, and in the Peloponnese, where Sparta was the dominant power. And so the Shah, the great king of the Persian Empire, Darius, known to us as Darius the Great, invaded this region in 490 BCE, and we know about the remarkable victory of the Greeks on the coastal city of Marathon, the city that gives its name to today's Marathon, because the report of this battle supposedly came by a runner running from Marathon to Athens, the distance of 26 miles, today's Marathon. Well, the Greeks won that battle, but they had not won the war. Darius died, and his successor, Xerxes, built a mighty army and a mighty navy in the 480s to resume the war against the Greek city-states. Now, after the victory of Marathon in 490 BCE, Athens began to erect a temple in celebration of its victory, and the temple was somewhere around here. You don't see it anymore. It was a Parthenon, but what occurred, of course, was that Xerxes returned. He returned with a massive army, reported by Herodotus to be hundreds of thousands of troops and hundreds of naval vessels. And in fact, Xerxes was successful in conquering this region, and in Athens, and the old Parthenon, as it's known, was destroyed in 480. And it looked that the weight of military might was so dominant on the side of the Persians that the Greek city-states would have no chance. But we know that history took its decisive turn in perhaps the most pivotal naval battle in history, at least one of the most pivotal, and that was the naval battle at Salamis, the island of Salamis in 480 BCE, when the Greek leader Themistocles made brilliant maneuvers, knowing the local meteorology that the winds would shift at a certain time, and he lured the Persians into a trap. The winds shifted, the Greek vessels rammed the Persian vessels, and quickly the Persians were in flight, including Xerxes, who left with his troops to return to Asia, fearing that otherwise he would be cut off from his exit back to Persia. He left behind his general Mardonius, and Mardonius was defeated the following year by a joint Spartan-Athenian-led army in Plataea in 479 BCE. And that was the last of the Persian invasions of Greece. That's why we could have a golden age of Athens, and why Greek civilization was able to survive and indeed thrive during the coming centuries. So it was in response to those victories that the notion of this grand set of edifices and celebration of Athenian power came to be. This place, the Acropolis, had been a high point and a citadel and a protection site and a place of veneration for centuries, perhaps for 8 centuries already, but not the grand structures that were envisaged here. After the victory at Plataea, the wars between the Greek city-states and Persia did not stop, because Greece went on to say, we push Persia away out of Thrace, today's Bulgaria, and farther away. And so the wars continued for several decades. And it is in the context of those wars that Athens became so dominant and so powerful. It became, to use a good Greek word, the hegemon of its time. And it was also a hegemon that had the remarkable evolution to a direct democracy. So it was a democratic state, it was a militarized state, it was a state in active war against the Persians, and it was the leader of this region, albeit in competition with another leading state, Sparta, the leading state of Peloponnese. And that would become another phase of Athenian history. But it was starting around 447 that Pericles envisioned the grand structures that we see here. Pericles himself came to power in 461 BCE and would remain basically the leader of Athens until 429 BCE. And the golden age of Athens is also the Periclean age. It is the age associated with Pericles, as is the Acropolis associated with Pericles. So the great Parthenon was conceived and built as this perfect Doric temple and the Erechtheion is the Ionic temple with those beautiful maidens holding up the porch. That's the Porch of the Maidens, in Greek architecture known as caryatids, women who are the foundation support of the buildings. And the grand entrance with another temple to Athena Nike, the conquering Athena, at the entrance of the Propylaea. Well, this building was built to last, and it did last as a magnificent structure for the next 2,000 years. But, of course, history evolved. It was actually soon after this golden age, in fact, starting in 331 BCE, and then the horrific bad luck of plague here in 330 and 329, that new wars broke out between Athens and Sparta. Who was really number one? And this is, of course, is the story told by Thucydides in the Peloponnesian Wars. And those wars raged for 27 years, and in the end, Athens was defeated by Sparta in the year 404 BCE. But what we really learn from the Peloponnesian Wars is that both Athens and Sparta were exhausted by the wars. Soon after Sparta's victory, Sparta went into decline and ultimately into defeat and was lost to history. Thanks God not for Athens, because the 4th century BCE of Athens was the flowering of philosophy. It started on that horrific misstep of the condemnation of Socrates and Socrates' death at the hands of the Athenians in 399 BCE, but then flourished with Plato and Aristotle and the founding of the Academy of Plato and the Lyceum of Aristotle in the 4th century BCE.